Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. I'm Captain Sidaris.
And you're 7. Hi guys.
Joining us today is Scorch Razoric, one of the community Discord admins of Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Hi, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Nice of you to join us. Before we go more into the subject of the game, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been a member of the Battlefront community for a very long time, since the early pandemic games. Originally, I was a member of the Game Toast community, which is probably pretty foreign to a lot of your viewers. But Game Toast was the original modding community for the 2004 and 2005 Battlefront games. I joined them around 2007, 2008. And I've been a part of a lot of the original, more popular mod projects for them, including the conversion pack, which combined Battlefront maps and modes and units to Battlefront 2, and Maverichal's The Dark Times mods. I was a tester for that, and I've got my name in the credits for that. So yeah, when the opportunity presented itself to help out with the new Battlefront community, I jumped at it, and they decided that I was a good fit for that. So I've been helping out with Battlefront 2 for 2015 and 2017. I really enjoyed those games, and I got super into helping run the community for that, to the point where I've accidentally become the face of the moderation team. But it's been fun. I really enjoy the games, I really enjoy the community, and it's been a good time.
And beside of the gaming sector, what Star Wars movies and series do you like?
Oh, I grew up with the originals, so they're my favorites, but I really like all of them. I'm one of those people who enjoyed the sequels, and I really like the Clone Wars too, so.
A rare kind of fan, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's a good thing. If you're happy with what's going on, then cool. That's just
For
cool.
sure. I understand that not all of the movies are perfect, and yeah, there were some issues with the newer movies, but I enjoyed them overall.
Yeah, but when we come to that, what shows or what films have no issues today? There's always something going on. So as long as it's fun, it's all just fine.
For sure.
I don't want to go too much into that subject, but I think the problem nowadays is that we always expect a better version of the previous stuff and not something completely different. So it's just a mindset thing, basically.
Yeah, everyone has their expectations.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with games. You somehow expect it to be bigger, better, nicer, and what if it is all of a sudden just different?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's just it.
Which is pretty much a very good summary of this game.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I would say, let's go for that question. Why do we again talk about Star Wars Battlefront 2? Well, this time we talk about the version of 2017, which is a game which had a very rough start, to say at least. But after some very negative reviews and backlash from the community, the developers changed the game massively. So it's completely different from the starter experience. In the game in general, you play in the single player at least a leader of an imperial special ops unit during the fall of the Empire. In the multiplayer, you have at least 10 different game modes like Supremeancy, Starfighter Assault, Heroes vs. Villains, or a classic Ewok Hunt. Sadly, for some game modes it's hard to find a match, so most of the time you will only play 2 or 3 different game modes, so you have to expect not so much variety, but it is at least there. You still can do it. For help or some additional squad members, you can check out the community Discord. And since we have the expert already here, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the community.
Yeah, so as you said, we do have a number of community tools within our server. We have a clan recruitment channel where a bunch of our mainly milsims start recruiting for their discords, and you can find a whole bunch of people to play with at any time if you join one of them. They're usually in game every day, and they like to squad up, and if you want a solid community, that's probably a good choice for you. But if you're just looking for a few people to play with, then yeah, we have our tools so that you can hop in with a couple new people in our voice channels and check that out. As for the community itself, nowadays it's not too Battlefront focused now that the game has sort of like ended its support, but we still have a number of people in that server who are dedicated to the game, are hopeful but not expecting a sequel anytime soon. But yeah, overall the community is a very proud one for the game.
Can you give us an estimate of the number of more or less active players?
Active players is probably not super high. We have 40,000 members in the server, and I'd say less than a quarter of them are still playing, so less than 10,000. Our looking for group channels are still very active. Our clan recruitment channels are still very active, but our main general discussion channels and the Battlefront discussion channels are mainly people talking about when they did play as opposed to what they're playing now.
Yeah, I think 10k guys is really a lot. But then again, we're talking about a game which is 5 years old today, I believe, somewhere around 5 years. So it's not that old, but then again, 10,000 people, that's quite a lot actually. So
support ended 2 years ago too, so it's not a bad number.
Yeah, I think we will touch this anyways later on.
Definitely, but before, I have a question about the clans. How do they manage to play this game? Since you can only join a game via the squad system, and this is limited to 4 players.
You can join with a bigger group. You can make a bigger group and then jump into the bigger game modes. You won't all be in the same squad. It'll break up the squads in groups of 4, and if there are extra people, it'll put them with some other people, but you can join with bigger groups.
And how do they organize, for example, clan wars?
So there is a way, if you want to, sometimes if 2 people want to play heroes versus villains against each other, you can find one of the less populated server regions. You can go into the settings and pick, like, if you want US East, US West, Europe, and you can choose one that you think is less populated based on the time. And then if you both select the same game mode, you can see if you both load into the same map, or you can back out. So if you want to do a quote-unquote private heroes versus villains map, that was originally the way to do that, but now there's a Hyber servers server manager mod where you can actually create a private server and people can join in. It's still in development, so I don't think you can quite use it for a clan war yet, but it's getting there.
I wanted to touch this subject, this custom server matchmaking, a little bit later. Good that you already did this. Can you tell me maybe how this was created? Because the game is so closed in the development sense. You know how they manage that?
So I have some idea. I'm not super involved with the modding community as I was for the older games, but initially I think they did through the Frosty editor. The Frosty editor looks at the game code to be able to make some edits there, and it decompiles the executable and all the DLLs and stuff. So I think they had a sense of what was happening and they reverse engineered it through that Frosty editor. So that's my understanding, is that they have reverse engineered some sort of server browser for the game.
Oh, that's good enough. Before we go any further, I think we talk again about this subject in the mod segment. Now I would like to talk quickly about the history of the game, which is, a little bit strange. 6 months after the release of the rebooted Star Wars Battlefront 2 in 2015, EA announced in May of 2016 that they work on a sequel. The goal was basically to make it bigger and better as everything before, more locations, heroes, vehicles, all the movie eras, and a real single player experience, which was basically a first here. For that, they hired 2 additional development studios. Besides DICE, on the game worked Crichton Games and Motive Studios, and everything looked great. We even got a promise that the game will not get a season pass and that all the additional content would be free. To achieve that, the community director even said DICE would have something very special in mind to allow the players to play longer and be connected to the game, basically. And shortly after the game released in November of 2017, the first player complained immediately that the in-game progression system is full of loot boxes And that even in the open beta just a month before, it wasn't there. They didn't have any loot boxes or a pay-to-win aspect. The first estimates from the player base was that you would need more than 4,500 hours of playtime or $2,000 to unlock everything. And yeah, as you can expect, an extreme negative reaction on social media and the print media followed, which even started an investigation in the whole subject of lock boxes and the danger they pose to young children. Also, which is very EA style. They first defended the whole loot boxes and the high costs of heroes. Yeah, the reaction from the community was more than 600,000 dislikes on Reddit, which luckily changed the mindset of EA a little bit, and they promised to remove the microtransactions.
I'd like a correction here, actually. As far as I remember, EA removed the loot box, purchasing before the game was released. No one could purchase the crates that had the things to upgrade and the credits because of the backlash before the game came out. So, in terms of progression, there was still a major backlash for how long it would take to unlock Darth Vader, because it required so many credits, and you could only get credits from the loot boxes and the crates, which personally was a bit of an exaggeration, because I was playing at launch and getting crates at a pretty crazy rate, and I unlocked Vader without having to do the 4,500 hours. And even though they did nerf how many credits it took to get Darth Vader, I still got that amount of credits pretty quickly.
I think those 4,500 hours of playtime was meant for everything in-game, not just one character. I think the numbers I read for one character was in the range of 40 hours.
Gotcha. Yeah. 80 hours sounds right, actually, if I'm looking at this.
Which is also a high number.
Yeah, even under 80 hours of play, I was able to get that many credits. So it was a bit of an overreaction on the community's part, but it was a good overreaction because it did get us that change.
But the change happened very late, I think. It was in March of 2018 when they finally removed all the progression influence of the loot crates and introduced the skill-based system, the skill point system, basically.
That's also when Ben Walk started, was during the progression update, and that's definitely when things started to look up. He took over for Matt Everett, who was the old community manager who said the infamous pride and accomplishment quote.
Yeah, I think after that we also got the two most important game modes, for me at least. The Capital Supremecy and the co-op mod was also released in 2018, which finally put the game also on my radar, where I said, maybe I check it out.
Capital Supremacy and co-op was 2019, actually. It was over a year later. End of 2018 was when we got General Grievous, we got Obi-Wan, Dooku, and Anakin, and we got Geonosis. And then early 2019, we got Capital Supremacy, we got ARC Trooper Commando Droid, we got Droidicas, and then end of 2019, September 2019 was when we got co-op and instant action, the Republic Commando.
Another thing which was released, of course, in 2019 was the Celebration Edition, where they basically re-released all the content of the game into one version and finally gave Steam and Epic players the chance to buy the game, which also has, of course, a negative aspect. They don't really tell you in big letters that you need an Origin account for that.
It's actually crazy stuff, I think. I mean, if you think, well, I go get it on Epic, yeah, you will do this right away, and you get the game in your list, and then you try to install it, and you know what it does? It downloads Origin. Guys, if I had wanted Origin, then why would I have, taken it at Epic? It doesn't make much sense, does it? It's really nuts.
In addition to that, you have to start both launchers to play it. You can't just close Epic now and just use Origin. No, you have to leave both open and active so you can connect to the servers. I just would have preferred that they give me a key and put it into my Origin account and I'm happy, but no. Why use one program if you can have two?
It is kind of a pain. I have no idea why they did it that way. I guess people wanted Steam support. Epic was new at the time. I guess they wanted to tap into both markets. Have people who refused to do just Origin and wanted it in their Steam library or Epic, I guess. And yeah, it is a wonky way to do it though.
Definitely. I mean, I can understand why someone would refuse to use either of these platforms. I mean, you can be objecting Steam, you can objecting Epic or Origin, and what I really find so bad about it is not the fact that it is Origin. I mean, I can totally live with that. But that, as the captain pointed out, basically when you're buying it on Epic, you need both, which is really stupid. There would be a million better ways to do this, I think, and yeah, I mean, I personally don't like Origin. It's just me.
Yeah.
Everybody can do it their own way, but if I chose to decide, well, I want this game and I want it at Epic, it would be really nice to have a proper notice. It's written somewhere, okay, you can find out, but it doesn't quite hit your face.
One advantage they got from doing it that way is on the Steam side, it tied into Steam achievements and the Steam trading cards. I know that's a small population of people who are into like the Steam trading cards and actually trading and making pennies off of them. But also, they were able to give away the Celebration Edition for free on Epic Games for about a month, and that really bolstered the community population for a long time.
Sadly, not long later, they announced that there will be no longer any support from EA for this game. So it was a very sad boost for the game.
Yeah. Scarif is sort of a curse for the Battlefront games. It was the last update for the 2015 Battlefront, and it was the last update for 2017 Battlefront 2.
And I believe you had this discussion at another time too. Imagine you had invested some more money. Let's say you were one of the early adopters and you actually paid some money more than you would have to necessarily do. And then all of a sudden they tell you, well, here's the game, it's for free and you have all the contents. I mean, if it were me, I would think you got to be kidding me.
There is that reaction. Personally, I'm of the camp that if I buy it day one and I pay a whole bunch for like the deluxe edition, that's what I'm paying. I'm paying for that access at that time. I've had the game for 2 years now before it went free. So I paid to enjoy it for those 2 years, and now more people can enjoy it with me.
Yeah, it's kind of like going to the cinema and watching a movie instead of getting it later on a DVD. Like, I can totally understand it, but I also understand the other way around.
For sure.
You think I invested money and they're giving it away for free. I just would have had to abide my time here.
I think it's okay to say that only if you spend money in the in-game shop. If you just buy the game and it's free 2 years later, I think who cares? But if I pay hundreds of dollars in the game, in the cash shop, and maybe half a year later, they give all the players this for free, right then I'm pissed.
But then again, I think the can of worms is all this pump in a lot of money into the game. I can understand why people might be happy with investing a little more money. Personally, I'm not one of those guys. But yeah, as I said, everybody's choice. But I think this is what you get from it. That's just the way it is.
There's a little bit of scandal with the Celebration update because they did give away all of the previous skins for free if you bought the Celebration update, whereas before you had to spend time and credits, or if you wanted to speed that up, you could buy crystals to buy the character appearances. But Celebration Edition just gave them all away for free. So even the version they gave away for free on Epic was the Celebration Edition. So everyone got everything for free, and no one had to work for any of it. And if you'd spent 2 years grinding it out, getting all the credits, unlocking all the appearances, and you finished it the week before, and then a week later Epic comes out and says, "Hey, it's free," then you might be a little pissed.
Exactly. This is what I also think. It's a little bit wacky to do it in this fashion. I could totally understand if they were doing classically, let's say, put in an add-on or stuff like that. But as you said, there's a lot of grind work involved, and all of a sudden you can have this in an instant, and it's really weird, just weird.
Yeah.
Sadly, this wasn't the only problem the game had in the end of the live support, basically. Around of October 2021, there was a certain bug which didn't make the community happy. Basically, all players, even bots, were immortal. And yeah, maybe it's even a hack.
Yeah, it was definitely a hack. There was a dev god mode that was accidentally left in the code. It was inaccessible to players, but it was accessible to people with Frosty, the mod manager. A very specific version of Frosty that bad actors got a hold of and were able to toggle that god mode on. And once it was on, since it was a dev mode and it wasn't fully developed, even the hacker wasn't able to turn it off. It just propagated throughout the server and stayed there even after the hacker left. So it was a bad time.
Yeah, really ugly, actually.
Yeah.
And the sad part is it took them nearly 5 months to fix it. So 5 months, no multiplayer. Or rarely a multiplayer match.
What did you say? They had 3 dev teams working on the game?
Yeah.
So I can only imagine they had those being molten down to one guy or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Right after the game came out, Criterion and Motive had basically stepped away from the game, and it was just a small patch team, basically, that had been constantly updating the game after that.
I mean, in a way, I can understand this. Usually, you need a lot less manpower to write some patches, unless you have done a really bad job. So I can understand this. But if it is the way you described it, it's some sort of development mode, and actually it is known what it is doing. It shouldn't take 5 months to get rid of this, or at least deactivate it.
The problem was that at that point, EA had shut down support for the game, and even that patch team had dispersed to other projects. So the problem with the community was that, one, we had to discover what they were doing, which was fairly quick. Some of the other Frosty modders figured out what was going on, and they were able to compile a report. But Ben Walk, the community manager, was now a producer for a different game, so he was not a point of contact we could get a hold of. Charlemagne, another one of our community managers, had also moved on to other projects, and Total FPS was the Battlefield community manager now. So we had to really try and get Total's attention with this, here's what's happening, here's how to fix it, and then he had to make the effort to go to his higher ups and say, look, this is what's happening, we need to get a team together and we need to fix this. So that's ultimately what happened. It's a shame it took as long as it did, but I guess that's just the AAA industry having to get the right permissions from the right people and then get people together and then finally get a patch out.
So mostly administrative problems, so to say.
Yeah, that's what I would assume.
Good. If you don't have anything to add to the history segment, I would continue to the pros and cons.
If you're looking for my opinion for the pros and cons, I think the pros is the game is, it's very fun. It's a very fun game. Like, regardless of what people think of the loot box progression, of how long it took, of how it compares to the old Battlefront games compared to now, the game itself it's a fun game. I enjoy playing it. There are some opinions out there that it shouldn't have been called Battlefront, because it's a very good game on its own, and if it were called anything else, people would be fine with it. The fact that it's called Battlefront makes people compare it to the older games, and whatever those differences are, it doesn't mesh with them. So that's why they're averse to it. But if they just gave it a chance and not compared it to the old games, I think overall it's a very enjoyable game. It's a good Star Wars game. It's very pretty to look at. The graphics are amazing. And most importantly, compared to the 2015 game, even though support has ended, you can still play either offline in instant action or in their other single-player modes, or the game modes require very few people. You can get a group of 4 people together and play co-op, or Heroes vs. Villains.
I have mixed feelings, actually, about it. As you said, the graphics is really decent, looks really good. I mean, after all, it's only 5 years old, so you got to expect some sort of quality here in comparison to the other stuff that we usually talk about here. It's a rather fresh game, and it looks good. This is what struck me first. If you play the single player and you think, well, this is nicely done. Maybe the characters could be a pinch more realistic, but that's okay. It's not bad at all. But the whole immersion is good. And yesterday I already talked with the captain about this. I also like the ideas of the styling of the ships. I mean, I took a lot of the original films and also believe of the shows, but they didn't stick to it totally, I think. And I think it's a good mixture. What's a whole different story is the multiplayer, on the other hand. Yesterday we had some matches and we were going different modes, and I think most of them are actually good ideas. So, for example, the already mentioned Ewok mode, for those guys who have seen our Elite Force video from back quite a while, it's very similar to the assimilation mode of that. You have two factions. Essentially, one faction is growing and growing the more it kills the others off, and the others only have to wait out and survive, at least one survivor. And I think that's kind of the interesting part, that there are many modes, but playing them can be really a problem, because we had multiple problems with actually the matchmaking. We had situations where we were split into different matches and not just different teams, but one guy was playing on a totally different match and we were in one group. Why can't we play in different matches to begin with, but also split up into different groups? And yeah, what's a strange experience, because you would think, well, this is the stuff that usually simply has to work no matter what.
Sure, I do think that's actually two problems I have with the game. Is one, there are too many game modes. As much as I enjoy having a variety like that, if the player base diminishes like it has, some of them are going to be empty. You're not going to be able to find games for them. And there's a lot of fun game modes, but it's just not enough players to fill those game modes. And the other one is just a lack of a server browser, because the matchmaking itself is not enough for you to do what you want with those game modes. If there were a server browser, you could see, okay, there are 20 games for Capital Supremacy and 2 for Strike, but I really want to play Strike, so I'll go with one of these 2 populated Strike servers. And I think that would alleviate some of the issues there, but whatever logic they have for just dumping you into a game, it's not perfect. And I think it could be alleviated with condensing the number of game modes and or having a server browser in the game.
I think mostly the latter, because I also took away the matchmaking doesn't really work that well. I mean, I can totally imagine that after a game being out there for 5 years, there are a lot of veterans out there, a lot of pros, which can wipe the floor with players like myself who just started with the game. But then on the other hand, I can't really believe that there are, let's put it this way, any more losers like me out there. So why do I always end up with guys mopping the floor with myself? Matchmaking didn't quite work, and in the sense of getting you in touch with players which are at least roughly in the same skill league as you are. Getting back at your idea, a server browser for this would be really nice, because then you can kind of stick to your own class, make the matchmaking yourself. But there's no option for this. The matchmaking decides, well, you guys have to play together, and, well, one is having hopefully a little fun, and the other just thinks, I'm gonna grab a cup of coffee here.
Yeah. I don't know if the Battlefront matchmaking was ever skill-based, and if it was, I'd be super surprised. To me, it seemed it dumped you in whatever game it could that had a space for you.
Which is also super weird, considering that I believe we were 3 guys, and you think, and you didn't find a match where we could all play in one team? Really? I don't think so. This is what I mean. It's kind of weird, you know? You cannot really say it's a single thing. It's just really messed up, so to say.
It's a mysterious black box that I'm not really sure how it's working, but it doesn't work as well as it should.
Or at least not as you would expect it. I mean, I really wouldn't expect to be in a group with 3 guys entering a match and then noticing, well, one of us 3 is in the other team. Why? Why the hell do you place him as an opponent to me? But okay, we already touched the whole origin stuff. Yeah. This actually bugs me because, as I said, I'm not really a fan of Origin. But okay, that's just the way it is. I find the German synchronization rather well. I mean, it's not overwhelmingly good, but from what I have experienced, it's okay. I've seen a lot worse. This one is just fine. So there's that going. If you want to play the game in, let's say, German, you're not doing anything wrong with that. That's just fine. And then there are the technicalities inside the game, because the captain said the single player would take, or at least took him, somewhere around 5 hours, which isn't actually a whole lot of time when you come to think of it, but okay. Problem is I couldn't finish it. I had 3 times a crash at the very same situation. Not sure if it is my computer or something, but I would really had liked to finish this. To get a good idea, because as I said, the single player is actually rather good. I like it, and I would really had enjoyed finishing it. And also the story is good. I mean, yeah, it could be done better, but it could also be done a hell of a lot worse. So I think it's fairly okay. Yeah, and another thing that always pops up, but again, maybe it's just my computer, although it's not exactly a potato. Somehow I always get a lag when those in-game cinematics end. The very last moment, it just hangs for a moment. And this is consistently all of the time. I'm just not sure if this is actually an issue with a newer machine, because by then when the game was released, my computer wasn't even available, the hardware I'm using. So I can imagine there may be some quirks or problems. But then again, judging from the rest, I'm not sure if it is an overall quality problem.
I will say it's probably not just you, but it's a result of how many updates the game has gone through and just the complete overhaul they've done with it. This game is very different from launch Battlefront, and because of it, and because of how small of a team made it that way, it's very cobbled together. So there are some issues with the seams. Like you can see the stitching. So little bugs like that'll crop up where it's like, well, it's not quite right. But the game works most of the time. A few visual issues.
It's the most of the time aspect that kind of struck me. For example, the solo mission where you have to pick up those data cubes. The second cube, the first time I played it, just didn't appear. I was watching the plays for 20 minutes, looking every corner of this thing, and thought, well, maybe I'm just stupid. Then I had a look at a playthrough, and I wasn't too stupid. It was just not there. So I had to start the mission again.
I have not played the story since launch. I haven't looked at it since launch, and I don't think the devs have looked at it since launch. So that bug has probably been there for a while.
It's funny because it was gone after restarting the game. It was just fine. Yeah. But just imagine you have the job to look for an item, because this is actually part of the mission. It's not that you're directly pointed at it, so you have to look for it. Mm-hmm. And it's simply not there. You can watch all you want. It's simply not there. This is really bugging a player. And it's so small things, you know. It's not like it's crashing once every 5 minutes or nothing is working. But there are a lot of small problems. And as you said, maybe it's really just a problem of the overhaul, that they didn't have the time. I mean, I can totally imagine you have released a game and you didn't do too well, it's not well received, and someone tells you, well, guys, we have to overhaul this, and I mean, now. Okay, right. You really have to hurry yourself, and you cannot go into all those details. So maybe it's really just that. But then again, then you would have to take the time to take off the rough edges, at least over time.
I come from a software development background, so not to get too technical on this, but I am a developer on a small team for a game right now, and it's a hard balance between making new features to keep your customer base engaged and fixing the bugs that your customers are frustrated about. You have to do both. You can't just do one. And because of that, sometimes some of the more minor bugs will either get lower priority or slip through the cracks because they go unnoticed, because they happen too infrequently while your small team is testing to get noticed. So when the patch goes out to the large population and these things start popping up because more players are playing and they have more of an opportunity to see them, sometimes those bugs get reported and they'll get added to the priority list. But as you release more updates, there's going to be more issues to look at, more things to test, and even more updates to create after that. It's just a very hard balance between polishing and making new content.
As a matter of fact, I'm also a developer, but I'm doing a business solution for a website, basically. So I totally know what you're saying here. I notice from our daily work, it's the very same thing. And it's especially problematic if someone, let's say, higher in the hierarchy is so to say driven to make features instead of improving overall quality.
Mhm.
So maybe this is also an aspect of it, that someone decided, well, we have to change it a lot, and if it isn't perfectly, well, that's just it. Leave it at that.
And to touch back on the size of the team, at launch they had DICE, they had Motive, they had Criterion, they had this massive team working to build the game and polish everything and get it out the door. But in the AAA industry, as soon as it's out the door, you lose 90% of that team. Like, every time. Like,
because they have to go to the next project, yeah.
Right, this isn't just a Battlefront problem. So this massively reduced team of developers has to sit there, update everything, and fix everything. It's so I can forgive them for it not being perfect at 3 years after the game came out, 4 years after the game came out.
As someone who knows it from the other side, how would you think about the possibility for having at least one or two guys doing some basic work on games? Because I noticed from other games too, where you will never get a fix for certain problems because there's simply no software engineer back there anymore. They can do some balancing, maybe add some maps, but when it comes down to actually doing technical work, there's no one left there. And I'm always wondering, is it really that immensely expensive to have one or two guys?
There's always going to be some software developers working on it. Every single patch has bug fixes, but it's not always the bug fixes you want. It's not always, 1 in 10 chances this data pack isn't spawning in this one particular mission that you can fix by restarting the game. That one might not get noticed and might not get fixed, but the more major bugs that the software developers can take a look at, the ones that are really bugging the players, they can fix those for each of the patches.
Yeah, the showstoppers, so to say. All right, but then one thing I found weird, I don't know how you view it, when you play the old Battlefront 2, last time we were talking about this, I said the music was really great, and in this game it's pretty much the same. But what I found really strange was the first introduction, because when the game starts up, there comes this usual Star Wars opening, this and after this initial, nothing. It doesn't continue. I don't know how you feel about this, but I found this really weird, because in the old Battlefront 2 they continued it, and it was really, that's it. This is how Star Wars starts, this is how it begins, and they, so to say, stop right in the middle.
It is not choice. I'll agree with you there. And one thing that I haven't really, no one's ever pointed that out to me before. So, but you're right. That is something that they cut the music after that little loading screen music that they have.
Yeah.
I hadn't really noticed that before. That is weird.
Yeah, that's it exactly. It's weird. It's so. Why would you choose to start in the classic Star Wars opening, and then after, don't know, 5 or 10 seconds, just cut it off and do something completely different? It's weird. I don't understand how this could have gotten past the art director. Maybe they didn't get the permission to use more or something like that. I don't know, but it's just odd.
I think they wanted, because Battlefront 2 has that the hero standing there on the main menu. Maybe they wanted more focus on like the voice lines for when he walks in instead of the mute. I don't know.
Just something that struck me because I'm used to Star Wars like that, and then they don't do it.
Yeah.
They just don't do it. Yeah, as I said, overall a mixed feeling. I like the single player. Multiplayer is difficult, so to say. And aside from those minor quirks, I think it's just fine.
Once you get into the game, I think it's a solid game with a couple minor issues that maybe drop the score, the review score a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, if they were putting off those edges, it would be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's, as I said, there are no real showstoppers. It's okay.
I think the game really shows that the whole development team really loved Star Wars, and they even wanted to make it a team-based game, so that you have to work together to achieve the goals. Sadly, I think the balancing is a little bit off in this game. I'm personally not a fan of ranking up your weapons and your abilities, because every time this is in a game, the new players will get raped. As we saw yesterday, I played roughly 100 hours in this game. Saturn and another friend joined me as totally noobs, and we couldn't win anything. Because all the other players are level 200, 300, 400. You can't match that. It's not fair, basically.
And this is why I was nagging so much about the matchmaking, because you can, of course, level this out by proper matchmaking. Like not putting a total noob which has half an hour playtime on the record against a real veteran which has been playing this 4 or 5 years. But they don't. And as you pointed out, those levels really show. And what I found even worse is this whole, if you have already gotten enough points, you even get the better character. So you're getting your ass handed even more by those guys which are a lot better than you, because they even get a better equipment.
I will say, this has been a holdover for the Battlefront games for a long time, because even in the 2005 Battlefront 2 that everyone praises, it was the same way. The first few people to get points were able to get the extra characters, like the clone commander or the jet trooper, and depending on the server you were on, it was whoever got the most points the fastest also got the hero.
But I have to say there, you have two different things in the old ones, at least. One is that you can customize the server. So you can say the person with the lowest points gets the hero, or it's random, or the guy with the highest point gets it. So that's balanced a little bit. And you don't also have that your items get stronger, or that you, for example, get more points, more credits in-game, so you can unlock the heroes faster. So it's really off here.
Yeah, that I will agree that's a problem with this game, and it's not just a Battlefront specific problem. There's a lot of games that do that, but I think Battlefront does a good job of mitigating that with the co-op mode. Before co-op, you were only able to level up and get your upgrades by fighting other players. But with co-op, you can work together with those high-level players, and you can get those points to rank up your stuff, get new guns, unlock all of the cards, and upgrade them with the skill points by just mowing down bots, just like the old games.
That's true. I also like the co-op mode. Basically, I love it. But what I don't like is that they didn't include every game mode in it.
Yeah.
You only have one game mode, so where are the other 9s? It's a nice fix, but they could have done better. Another nice fix would have been give us a good in-game browser system so we can customize battles, so we can maybe even have a battle with only noobs. There is so much potential there, and I think they dropped a little bit the ball. But I understand it. They had the pressure from EA to make, in the beginning, basically a pay-to-win game, and then switch everything back. Of course, there are some sacrifices on that way.
Yeah. I will say, I did have the opportunity to meet with and talk with the developers a couple times at their EA Play event. And yeah, you're right. They do absolutely love Star Wars. They love the game probably more than the players do. But if I remember one of the conversations I had, that definitely was it. It was a case where one of the marketing guys said, "Hey, we need Battlefront to make money. Let's put loot crates in the game." And that was a decision that didn't come from the game designers, didn't come from the lead game developer. It came from marketing and sales. So they were required to build it this way, and that hamstrung them in terms of what they could do for progression.
Actually, I would think this is usually the case. I have no idea if this is true, but I'm a developer myself, and actually you do not want to mess around with your customers, your audience. You actually do not have a notion of doing this usually. And I think it's mostly when someone says, well, we need to make some extra money with it. Not that you cannot make money with a game. Of course, this has been going on for 40 years or something like that. So there's that.
The thing is, I do kind of agree with the marketing and sales aspect. You do, if you want to make a game, you're not going to charge for updates, you're not going to charge for an expansion pack, because that's what they said at the beginning, because that's what happened with 2015, is that they charged for the expansion packs and it really broke up the player base. So they're not going to do that with Battlefront 2. But then, how do you afford to keep supporting the game if you don't have something that people can buy?
Give me hats. Like Team Fortress. They got rich by selling hats.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I feel like they should have charged for some exclusive appearances, and it may have rubbed some people the wrong way, but the game had gotten to the point, by the time they were releasing new appearances, everyone had enough credits to just straight up buy them for credits, and they couldn't keep up with the demand for new skins.
Another thing which really showed the love and passion about this project was the actress who voiced Aiden, the lead character. She was so into it that she basically tracked down the person who wrote the book to the game and offered to voice also the audiobook, which is even a rare thing in games, that there is a book for a game.
I got to meet both of them at Comic-Con. I met Janina and Christy Golden. I got them to sign the poster for the game, for the book, and they are both super into the Battlefront series, and Janina especially is just so stoked for this game.
Yeah, in every interview I saw them talking about the single player, the whole experience and everything. You really believe it. It's such a warm feeling to see in an actress and in a gameplay environment, I would say, that they really do this for passion and not primarily for money.
Everyone involved in actually creating this game and building it to what it is, it's just such a work of love, and they put so much of their fandom into this game, and it's a shame that the game got slammed so hard and had to recover the way it did, because it's a passion project for so many people working on it.
Yeah. This is what I take away from it. This is the problem. You look at the game, you think this is actually fun. Gameplay is good, looks good, and it's the small things that mess things up. It's not like the game is crap to begin with or something. No, this could have been an awesome title, but somehow they didn't quite get off. This is sad. As you said, as a passion project, I can totally imagine how the team must have felt when they got the critics. Actually, it's a sad thing, because it could have been a totally cool and awesome title.
Mm-hmm. It took too long to get good.
Yeah. And even then, it's still not, it's somewhere 95%. And this is what I mean. It's like you're trying to do a race, and for a few meters, you don't get over the finish line. You don't quite finish it. You can see it. And damn.
Yeah. I feel like if EA hadn't shut it down in 2020 and we had kept getting updates, I feel like we could have gotten there.
Yeah.
But we just never got the opportunity.
Especially Saturn, if you imagine, the game would have a LAN mode, so you could play with your friends on a LAN party, say, only against bots. It would be such a nice experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Or maybe even play the whole single player as co-op would also be a nice addition. I have, of course, to mention two other things which are very rare, maybe even unique one. There's an option in the settings that you can customize the game for color blindness. This I never saw in a game.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's becoming more commonplace, I think, but yeah, the colorblind modes are super helpful.
Yeah, this also surprised me. I mean, when you come to think of it, it's actually an awesome move. Why is this coming up just this late? Should have been coming up a lot earlier. Cool idea.
I think a lot of accessibility is now starting to become a part of games. I don't know if Battlefront, I don't know if I'd say they were leading the charge with a colorblind mode, but it is becoming a lot more prevalent to have UI customizations where like bigger font for people who can't see as well, more button mappings so that people who have dexterity problems can play better, colorblind options, text to speech for people who need that.
Then sadly I have also to mention a few more negative aspects. One I only saw today basically. For some reason my internet said, well, I don't want to work on a Sunday. And it's not directly a fault of the game, more from Origins, but if you're in offline mode, you can't play anything. There isn't any possibility to do, for example, a card mode or a single player campaign, nothing.
Yeah, that's definitely not a Battlefront specific issue, but it does hurt Battlefront too, yeah.
It's always the same problem. I believe we talked about this a few times here. Just imagine someone decided, well, let's turn off the servers on the other end. Then this game is basically data garbage.
Yep. We might touch on this later, but I think it's good that Kyber is being developed for that as a replacement for if the servers ever get shut down.
This was basically the first thing I thought of when I heard about this project. Yes, finally we can have custom servers, and if they ever shut it down, we can still play it. Then a minor issue I would say is the menu. It looks nice and everything, but for a game menu it's unbelievable hardware intense. Every time I boot up the game, I hear every fan in my PC going to max speed. It's really odd for a game.
And sometimes for a novice player, it's not too intuitive. It really took me a while to get to the point where I could continue the campaign. I had to notice, well, in the upper left corner, that's the begin button.
It's a very...
When you know it, it's easy. But if you don't know it, you think, where's the damn button?
Right.
It's right in front of you.
Again, it's a product of how cobbled together the game became. Because at launch, you had 3 modes. You had the campaign, you had Galactic Assault, and you had Strike, maybe Blast. So those were the 3 on the menu. And then as you got more and more game modes, it just became more and more a Frankenstein menu of trying to get to where you wanted to go.
If anyone has also listened to other podcasts of our series, we love modding here. And it's sad that this engine is so restricted that in this game, at least what I saw, is only changing a little bit the skins and nothing more. Maybe you know a little bit more. Is there a possibility to add more stuff?
I do know a little bit more. So because this is a multiplayer game, a lot of the mods are visual only, so that they are quote-unquote multiplayer compatible. But there is an instant action project. It used to be called Instant Action Improvements. Now I think it's called Instant Action Overhaul, where it does completely overhaul the single-player instant action mode. And because you don't touch the servers when you're playing instant action, you're not going to get banned for things like balance changes or completely new weapons or completely new units to play with. So I think the most recent update they've done is even add new maps to instant action. So it's very new, because instant action is very new, but there is modding for single player in the game that does completely change gameplay.
Okay, that's good. The last thing on my negative list is in every interview, I basically heard from the developers, it's such a big project. The scope is unbelievable. We need 3 developer teams and everything. And I have to say, I can't feel it. I know they have all the different eras, so many skins and everything, but they have a single player of 5 hours, 10 game modes, which I think nearly half of them were from previous titles. So where is it? Where is this big scope? Maybe you can clear this one up for me.
Yeah, since it is a multiplayer-based game, I think a 5-hour campaign is not the worst thing in the world. We got something. It could be more, but I think it's pretty average. Especially first-person shooter campaigns, they're not usually super involved. But I think what happened was there was going to be this plan for expanding, adding new maps, adding new planets, and then they had to completely overhaul the game. They had to take 6 months to fix progression, and their original roadmap just went out the window. And the fans were very demanding in what they wanted to see, so they tried to appease as much as possible what they felt the fans wanted, like more Clone Wars eras, General Grievous, Obi-Wan, Dooku, Anakin. And you could really tell they were taking what the players wanted into account instead of adding what they thought was important to the game, like new game modes or game maps, because there was one update, the Elite Core update, where they added new skins to the clones, and in the background there was a little tiny fuzzy model of what looked like a droideka, and everyone went nuts. And the community manager said, there's not a droideka, we're not adding droidekas to the game, that's not a droideka. And then they went and they looked, and someone on the art team had found an unused asset of a droideka, like hadn't been worked on, no plans to add droids to the game, but there was a work in progress model, and he added it to that scene when they were advertising this Elite Core update, just in the background, and everyone noticed it, and EA did not. So when EA found it, they're like, okay, yeah, we accidentally added a droideka. There are no plans to work on it though. And then a year later, droidekas get added to the game. So they played fast and loose with their roadmap, and so I think everything that was going to be added to the game got reprioritized into new units, new progression, new weapons, and then of course the Rise of Skywalker was also they had to prioritize something for that because of Lucasfilm's direction. So I think what we could have gotten versus what we did get is just a result of that progression update.
I thought something like this happened, yeah, sadly. But you mentioned something which is a good subject, the maps in-game. I don't have a clue how many maps are in this game because you can't really say what maps you would like to play. There isn't even a list in the game. It's just what the god of matchmaking is giving you, basically.
There's a set rotation that is standardized. You're going to play this map and then this map and then this map. I don't know it off the top of my head, but that is how they determine what map you're going to play. And so the result of that is that if the server's been up for a long time, then you might get a random chance for a game. But if you are just starting a new server, I think you might start at the top of the rotation. So another problem that could be alleviated with a server browser, where someone could choose a map that they wanted to start with.
Yeah, definitely. It's sadly so easy to fix, but yeah, we don't have it, and this is why it leaves for newer players a really bad taste. I love the project and everything, especially the single player. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't have thought it would be possible that a Battlefront title has such a good single player, but it has. I also liked that they finally did the right thing. Listening to the community is always good. And a rare thing even, that they included a really nice camera system, that you could not only choose between first and third person view, you can also say, no, I want to play from the right side, I want to play from the left side. This is really rare in games.
Yeah, I think it's becoming more commonplace for the over the shoulder because it does offer you a significant advantage when cornering, but it is a very useful feature.
So I think this is basically everything I have to say about the pros and cons, and I think we also mentioned a lot of the unique stuff already, but maybe you still have one or two items?
I do have some fun facts.
Sure, shoot.
Everything in the game is canon. Everything you see, every trooper skin, every hero skin, everything had to be run by Lucasfilm in order to be canon. And one unique aspect of that is that there are a few clone trooper platoons that were first seen in Battlefront 2. the 181st Armored Division, the 87th Sentinel Corps, and the 41st Ranger Platoon first appeared in Star Wars Battlefront 2 2017. And the 41st Ranger Platoon was even retconned into being in Episode 3 by one of the reference books that came out in 2020. So I thought that was super cool.
Using this as a segment for the hidden content, as we mentioned, the amount of detail this game has is unbelievable. Every side conversation, a lot of the holograms you see is hinting to comics, to books, to the movies, to the series. They have also an unlockable skin for Rey in where is it?
Maz's Castle?
Yeah, in Maz's Castle, where you can even find a picture of all the deaths. It's amazing what they put into this game. The hidden content list is amazing. I really like this in a game.
Yeah. Touching on the Maz's Castle Easter egg, it's an Easter egg within an Easter egg, but part of that unlock sequence involves touching the flag in Maz's Castle of the 501st Legion, which was an Easter egg in Episode 7, because it was supposed to be like a hidden flag of the real-life 501st Legion in Maz's Castle. And now Battlefront has said, oh, this is important to unlock our Easter egg too.
That level of detail is what every franchise game needs. For that alone, I think this game earned so many points on my list.
There's a lot of iconic locations you can find on the maps too, like the Wampa Cave on Hoth. You can go to the Death Star briefing room in the Yavin 4 Temple. There's the interrogation room where Kylo held Rey on Starkiller Base. All of these you can find by wandering around on the map.
Since we talked so negatively about the game, maybe to round it a little bit up, can you tell us maybe some special memories you have during your many hours in the game? Something very unique or very positive?
I absolutely love the co-op mode. Like, I cannot express how much enjoyment I get out of co-op. And I know that's not a very popular opinion among the community. Some people look down on co-op. They say it's just a place for noobs to get their weapons upgraded before going to the quote-unquote real game. But man, playing co-op with my friends is the closest the game feels to the original Battlefront games, playing instant action and just mowing down bots. And it really is a challenge sometimes, just fighting for that last command post, everyone with their upgraded units and all the heroes coming in, and the bots still put up a fight. And you really have to bear down and go into overtime and really take that command post, and it's just a great feeling. I love it so much. But yeah, and then just all the community transmissions, and this isn't really a game memory, but it was really fun being in the Discord server or on the Reddit and just everyone super hyped for that new update. It really brought us all together, especially after such a rocky launch, for everyone to be excited for the game's upcoming content.
Now that you mention it, bots, something I noticed, or maybe it's just me, they don't seem to be too stupid. They even try to outflank you.
Oh, they're very intelligent bots.
Because, like in all games, of course, when there are too many, there's too many. But even a few can give you a run for your money.
Mm-hmm.
So would you basically say, if you wish for a new sequel, would the first mode you play be a co-op mod?
I don't know if the first mode I would play be a co-op mode. I think for a sequel, I really feel like they should go back to their roots and make it more similar to Battlefield. Capital Supremeancy is a step in the right direction. I think there are a couple things they could have done better because they almost tried too hard not to be Battlefield. But I think that style of capture command posts, have bots mixed in with real players, I would like a sequel to incorporate that better into the game. And that would be the first game mode I would want to play.
That's definitely true. I also would like that they move a little bit back in history and maybe even include my favorite game mode from the original Battlefront 2, the space combat where you could board enemy vessels.
Yeah.
And even improve that, not only 3 or 4 rooms, maybe a lot more.
There is an argument to be made that once you start making too many different battlefields, or not the game, but like actual zones where players can fight on a map, it starts to become too spread out. and you need way too many players in order to make the map filled. So I'm actually one of the people who argues against ground to space combat, because I feel like you need to either focus players on the ground or you need to focus players in space. But if you split them between both, it's just going to be a problem.
But there are two things you could do. For example, one, which they already done in Battlefront 2 2017, include bots into the multiplayer match. So you have always enough activity to make it a fun experience. Another thing they can do, of course, is give us experience maybe with 100 players or 150 players. Project Reality, Forgotten Hope 2 from Battlefield 2 demonstrate how nice this experience can be and how good and fluently this experience can be. So it's not, sadly to say, an excuse for the developers to say, no, we would need too many players to make it fun. It's already done.
I just think if there are 150 players in a match and you want them to spread out between space and ground, I don't know how there's a way to do that wouldn't become a problem in the game. Like, what if all 150 players want to play on the ground, or even just a majority of them, and then space feels too empty, or vice versa, a majority of them want to play in space and then ground feels too empty?
I think there would be two possibilities. One, in the title Left 4 Dead, there was an AI god, an AI manager basically, who adapted the gameplay of the players to the behavior of the bots. So it would be always balanced in that way, maybe. Another way would be the option to lock how many players can play a certain class. Of course, it's a hardcore experience, but there are enough hardcore players out there who would like that.
My experiences with this game is that players get frustrated when the units they want to play are locked. And so I think that would be on a much bigger scale when there are 150 players and even more restrictions. I feel like that's going to make a lot of players frustrated too.
Definitely the casual gamer will hate it, but I think as an bonus segment it would be nice. You don't have to advertise it as the main attraction of the game. Since you already make space maps and ground maps, you could possibly design it that way that you combine them sometimes, even if it's just 2 or 3 maps, and the community can add maps later. Of course, it's just a pipe dream. We are talking about a pipe dream here.
This is controversial, but I feel like a Battlefront sequel should focus on ground combat, especially with Star Wars Squadrons. I think Squadrons does a much better job at the space combat aspect, and I feel like if they do more of those sequels and do Battlefront separately from that, we could have a Battlefront that is closer to Battlefield in that it does have ground combat and vehicles that you can enter and fly around the ground maps, but then we limit the space combat to this Squadrons franchise, and they do it way better, and then Battlefront can focus on really polishing the ground combat, and I feel like that would be a better experience for players.
Ooh, another extremely pipe dream here.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned 2 different games, let's combine them. Let's have a Squadron games and a Battlefront game, and the battles are basically on both games simultaneously.
That is also an idea that I would absolutely love, and I've pitched this to just people in the Battlefront server. I'm like, what if you have one game playing space combat and one game playing ground combat, but they affect each other?
Yeah, and maybe if you look up into space, you will see the space combat.
And the poor guys who get me crashing on their heads.
Yeah, definitely. I still remember your first experience in an X-Wing.
Well, you haven't seen my first experience with the Falcon. That was embarrassing.
2 very simple things I would like to see is, firstly, please don't make it pay to win. It's good to stay away from that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And make it maybe a little bit a longer story in the single player. I know it's not the focus of the game, but I think in Battlefront 2 the story would be a little bit better if it had 2 or 3 more hours. So they could really fill in some gaps which are too abruptly done. And yeah, of course also, please give us a in-game browser. This hurts. This really hurts me.
Yeah.
And please make it platform native.
Regardless of our pipe dreams. I think the most important thing that a Battlefront sequel needs is just more. We need more maps, we need more heroes, we need more trooper skins, we need more reinforcements, we need content from the TV shows, we need content from Mandalorian, from Ahsoka, from the Clone Wars, from Rebels. And if they can do that in a way where some of the skins can generate a revenue for them, I think that would be an even greater boon. But that's super hard to do when everything needs to go through Lucasfilm and be canon. So maybe we need to be a little more lax on that, have a little bit more fun with the Battlefront skins. But that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely I can concur. Just give us more, and yeah, the community would be happy. I think they are heartbroken now that there isn't any announcements for a new title, anything official. Okay, I would say basically this is the part of the video where we open the mic to you. Is there anything left on your topic list? Anything you would like to add?
I don't have anything left, no. We covered all of it.
Then let me first say thank you for correcting me at the history segment. This was the first time I really screwed up, but you saved the day. Next time I will do better.
No worries.
And yeah, of course, thank you for joining us. It was nice talking with you.
Thank you for having me. It was a fun time.
Okay, then I would say that's it for this review. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think about the game, and of course, play the game. Until next time.
Bye-bye.